What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Crush City Territory, sponsored by the Foul Territory Network. I'm Chandler Rome with Tyler Stafford, and rejoining us is co-host Josh Reddick. Josh, I know were you in Disney World or Disneyland? I know there's a big distinction.
So it was a multiple city trip. We went to Jacksonville first for Mavericks go-kart race, and then we flew out to Disneyland. So we went from Florida all the way to California because one of my wife's friends had set up a VIP tour, and they invited us to come along. So we were not going to miss that opportunity. If you've never done the VIP tour at Disney, I highly recommend it. If you
I have 1,000 questions. Okay, so did you get to go in the secret Disney apartment that's on Main Street?
So we don't get to do that kind of stuff. We're not. Okay. I'm not celebrity enough. We just get the tour, and with the VIP tour, you get pretty much a lightning lane all day. They walk you around and put you basically in the fastest line on every ride. You can do it as many times as you want. I mean, my kids' favorite rides are like Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, and the Cars ride, with the cars driving around. So we literally don't get out. We get in. We tell them we want to ride it twice. We don't hop out of the cart. We get mean bugged by everybody, and then we go again.
Dude, is the new Tiana one open in Disneyland yet?
It is open. We did not get on it. It was way too cold for a water ride that day. So yeah, no. We next time we'll get on it when it's probably a little bit more warmer. I'm all for the water rides, but it has to be timed right.
I told Chandler I've got 2 kids, and then I grew up a Disney family. Like, that was our big vacation every couple of years. And I was like, I never consider that like a main part of my personality. But as soon as I get to talking about Disney with somebody, I'm like, oh, I could talk about this all day.
It comes out. Comes out. See, I'm the opposite. We grew up, I didn't go to Disney until probably, my late teen years.
Yeah.
Our big vacation every year was we'd go to Atlanta and watch the Braves play for a weekend, which I loved. Obviously,
yeah.
My brother and I loved that. And we'd go to the water park there. I think it's called White Water. So we'd go to water park all day, Braves game at night. But yeah, I didn't really get into the Disney until I actually got married and had kids. So I'm living the kid's dream at 37 years old.
How do your kids do on Pirates of the Caribbean?
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing they're really scared of. The only one that really pops out is Ryder on the Cars ride when you're going through Radiator Springs, and Frank, the big, the harvester, comes up. That's when he kind of like cowers and turns. He just doesn't like the loud noises. He loves because he loves the movie, but other than that, they're great.
That's always we try to time Pirates of the Caribbean when we want them to go to sleep, because you're like inside in the dark for so long that
that's when you go to It's a Small World.
Oh yeah, but it's way on the other side of the park.
But you're cooling off. It's an air conditioned ride, so it's great for the parents. And we used to do the same thing. We'd put them in our hand when they were before they were 2. Same thing. Give them a nice 20-30 minute nap. Here we go.
Yeah.
You guys are saying words that I just don't.
Dude, I'm telling you, we could do this for 2 hours. I have so many questions. Where do you stay when you go to Disney World?
So before kids, we actually stayed in resort. We stayed at the Californian. Okay. After kids, we stay across the street at the Anaheim Hotel. So I mean, it's just I think it's like $200-300 cheaper a night. And when you get a VIP tour, there's no need to get in there early for that extra hour.
Yeah, so, Disneyland, there's no point in staying on there. What about at Disney World in Florida? Where do y'all stay?
Disney World, we've bounced around. We always stay in resort, but I can't remember the name. I remember one we stayed at had like a pirate theme. Our whole room was pirate theme. Our beds were pirate ships. And then another time we stayed. Oh gosh, I can't remember the names, man. We've only been to Disney World like 2 or 3 times, and you get so jumbled with Disney World because you got to ride a gondola here or there. You got to go on a bus.
It's a city.
Here and there.
Yeah,
it's you got to dedicate a whole day just to like one park. Unless you're going to like Animal Kingdom or something else where you can't really mix a lot. You're spending one day in that whole park, which is what makes Disneyland so great. You can knock out everything in the morning in California Adventures, head over to Disney and the rest of the afternoon.
It must be. Yeah. I promise. You're done.
Let's talk some baseball, huh?
Yeah, we'll continue this off air later. But
so Josh, while you were gallivanting around the Disney properties, one of your former teammates got a deal that I'm not sure that look, I've watched Justin Verlander enough to know you never doubt the guy. Never in a million years would I ever doubt Justin Verlander. But I think that 1 year, $15 million to the Giants, just after how last year ended for him, he's going to be 42 years old in February. I guess your initial reaction to Verlander getting that deal with the team he got the deal with in the Giants.
So there's partial reason, I think, and it's crazy because 15 million seems like Justin's taking a huge pay cut considering how much Justin has made in his career and how great he's really been. Last year, I think he came out and said last year was a pretty upsetting year for him personally, from what he went through. And it's pretty crazy to say because the guy's 41 and this is like his second setback in his whole career. I think it was 07, 08, where he had the shoulder problems and then came back no problem. But I really like this move for him personally because you're pitching in the Bay Area where the ball goes nowhere at night. You're pitching in San Francisco where the ball goes nowhere anyway. He's a guy, he still can get it up to the mid-90s when he needs to. He's not that big power pitcher anymore, but the ballpark he's going to be in there at home is going to help him significantly with the deep fly balls because Justin is known to give up a few homers here and there. But when you can minimize that long ball from him, and especially in that park, I think it makes all the difference. Now, on the flip side, he's going to have to face a Dodger team that's ungodly stacked for maybe 6 to 7 starts of the year, depending on, because he's their guy now. He's going to want to be the guy that faces the Dodgers every chance they get. You go to that ballpark, it's very hitter friendly. You go to places like Colorado, you're using probably the inexperience of that team probably to his advantage, but we all know what happens in that ballpark. You can be down 10 and never really feel out of the ball game. And you go to like Arizona, another great hitter's park. So it's going to be a challenge for him to go on the road and do what he needs to get done. But when he's at home, I think that's going to be his big power numbers. And he's got another team with orange in it. I don't get it. That's one of the ugliest colors on the color spectrum, but it seems to be a natural thing for him to have to go to a team with orange. So maybe orange is his color.
Tyler and I spent the last pod kind of recapping his legacy in Houston because look, I said it on the pod and I'll say it again. As long as Jim Crane's involved, I wouldn't rule out Justin pitching for the Astros again, just because Jim and Justin are very close. But right. It kind of seems like his stint in Houston is over. We could only talk just from our outside looking in vantage point. You had a very unique perspective in that you were on the team when they traded for him the first time, and you really watched his dominance those next 4 years. So I know there was a ton going on at that non-waiver deadline. You guys were on the road because of Harvey. Dallas had said some stuff in the media a couple of weeks earlier about, being mad that you guys didn't make a move at the first trade deadline. Can you take me through what it was like when you guys got the word that Justin Verlander was coming to Houston in 2017?
So it's actually a really great story because I'm with you on the Dallas story. We were all pretty pissed off that we didn't make any moves because we knew how good of a team we were. We knew we'd make the playoffs, but we needed that one piece to get us over that hump to make us the World Series contender that we could be. That whole month of August was pretty frustrating. We just kept winning and just, kind of let our thing do its own thing. And we decided, look, guys, if we're not going to make this move, this is something that we're going to have to step up and do. When you talk about the Harvey trip going all the way down to Tampa for, 3 games against the Rangers, we won't even get into that. Those selfish words I can't say.
We can get into it. Go ahead.
Could have just let us play at Globe Life. Come on, I mean, let's go. But I actually got a great story about that trip that we'll rewind back to that. Coming back here, and I remember being on my couch in my place because I think we had that day off. I think we had the off day, and I was just sitting there playing video games, and we had our group chat firing off about, we're getting Verlander, and then the deadline hits, and it's like, we can't, we're not going to get him. Well, boys, here we go. And then 2 minutes later we get it, and our whole group chat just starts firing off about how excited we were and how great of a pickup that was going to be for us, except for one guy. I think we already know who that is. Freaking rat. And then, so I think knowing how big he has been, and I faced him in the playoffs with Oakland back-to-back years, and he single-handedly put us out. And I think we all knew that's what we were getting. We were getting a guy that is going to be our bump up to our number one and move a guy who 2 years ago had just won the Cy Young down to our number 2, and Lance was still being very, very good. Charlie was still iffy about what was going on, but what a big piece he became of that as well. So I think it might have helped lesser the roles of some guys and take some weight off their shoulders to have a guy like Justin come in. And not only what he brings to the table on the field, what he brings in that clubhouse, he brings a presence, he brings, a teacher side of things. He's helping guys here and there. And what you see out of this guy, we signed him, this was, 8 years ago. So he'd have been 30, 34 when we traded, 35 when we traded for him. So just seeing the guy put his work ethic in on non-start days, what he was doing to get ready and prepared for his days was just unbelievably impressive to see a guy do what he's been doing. He's been doing that same routine for already 10 plus years at this point. To him to continue that, it shows you why he's been in the game for so long and how well he's done and why he's been so successful. But to quickly rewind back to my Tampa series, I'm kind of happy that we didn't go to Arlington for that, because the first day there, I remember Springer and I had to go to the eye doctor to get contact because we only packed enough for the road trip, didn't come home. So we had to go get our eyes tested, get there, and I'm down in the hotel lobby and I'm just waiting for Springer and our Uber to show up. And I've got one headphone in. Don't know why I just put one in, but I just put one in. All of a sudden I start hearing this gagging sound. And so I turn around and there's probably this 80-year-old woman holding her neck. And I'm like,
oh no.
And I look around and nobody's paying attention to this lady. And so I just look at her, are you choking? And she shook her head and I was like, all right, well, here we go. And, I did everything, did what I had to do. And I was afraid I was going to break this fragile woman. And so I just slowly started increasing my pumps. And sure enough, after about, 20 of pumps on the Heimlich, I got it out. And it was a piece of honeydew stuck in her throat.
What?
Saved her life. And then 5 minutes later, we were in the Uber, go to the eye doctor.
So there was no one in the lobby. Was it just you and this woman in the lobby, or was did no one else jump to action?
So the hotel we were in, it was kind of like a big open, it was a huge lobby. So there might have been 20 people spread across the whole lounging area.
Okay.
I was just the closest one to her. And, in the day and age we're in now, everybody's, down here.
Right.
So they probably weren't paying attention. And luckily I only had one headphone in. And by the time I got up, everybody then had circled around and, medics were in there and ambulance had come in, and Springer walks down and goes, Red, what the hell did you do?
Had you ever done the Heimlich?
I had never done anything. I had never been Heimlich. I had never done the CPR. Never done it. But when you know it's easier when you know what to do. It's harder to make that jump into helping because everybody's so scared of what might happen, or there's always that chance of, oh, you broke my rib, I'm going to sue you for saving my life, kind of thing. But when that goes out the window and you don't think, you just go into it. I think that's what really makes it kind of special, because you never know what could have happened. If God forbid we had not been there that day, she might have not made it.
That is unbelievable. How did you not immediately tell everyone that story? That's the first thing I would have done.
I told the guys when we got to the field, because obviously Springer was telling guys about it, but it wasn't something that I wasn't going to go bragging about saving a life. That's not something that you just kind of throw out there. It's kind of like, if I'm going to do something good for somebody, I'm not going to have my camera out and show it. I'm not there for the notoriety. I'm there for that feeling of giving back and helping out the less fortunate, because where I come from, at one point I was that person who didn't have a whole lot, and to be able to help out something like that, it's not something I want to publicize.
Dude, that is awesome. That's an incredible story.
And it makes you feel, it really makes you feel good too. So
yeah,
when you accomplish something like that, to be able to handle that situation, because like I said, 90% of the people don't have the ability to just get up and do it. They're just always so scared of what might happen.
There's some divine intervention there too, because like you said, there's a chance you guys could have been in Arlington to play that series against the Rangers.
Exactly.
So you mentioned, Verlander coming and kind of the teammate he was. I think we all kind of know the stories of him on start days, right? That he just turns into psycho and doesn't talk to you, but you mentioned kind of him teaching in between those days. What was Verlander like on the days that he's not pitching? Is he going over scouting reports with hitters, with pitchers? Is he giving tips? What was he like in the clubhouse?
So when he's not doing his routine and stuff like that, he's usually pretty outspoken. He's, getting his treatment in the training room, and he's not quiet on non-start days. He's just another one of the guys who just goes out there and shoots the crap with you. He's, he'll be loud in the clubhouse if we're loud. He'll be in the, food room talking trash to everybody, just that typical baseball teammate. You know, we're always talking crap to each other about anything and everything. So he's not afraid to chime in. He's not afraid to humble you by any means, because how great he is. He got me the first time we ever had a face-to-face, and it was actually in the middle of a nightclub after we had won the division. And it was right after Kate came up to me. I had my Georgia Bulldogs hat on, of course. And she walks up. She's like, "Oh, my sister goes to Georgia." I was like, "Oh yeah, cool, go Dogs. That's great, you know." And she goes, "She shows equestrian there." I'm like, "Oh, that's pretty neat." And she goes, "That's horses." I go, "Yeah, no." I'm like, "I know what equestrian means. I'm not stupid." And then, like, right after that, JV walks up, and I said, "Hey man, I'm so glad to have you on our team. I hated facing you all those years in the playoffs, blah blah blah." He goes, "Yeah, I owned you guys pretty good, didn't I?" I'm like, "Wow, real humble here, Justin." But that's all. It was fun. It was all fun, and he laughed his butt off. So, and that's what made him so awesome. But yeah, I think the thing that goes, I guess, gets forgotten about with JV is that first year with us, because after that, after that first trade year, he seemed to kind of just flow in and be one of the guys. But one thing that I always rewind back to JV was game 2 World Series. We're down 1. Here comes JV's horrible looking body up the steps with his cut off shirt, his hairy arms, and I couldn't even tell you exactly what it was. Plenty of expletives for the dugout to get us fired up. But when he did that, it was like a whole different aura, as the kids say, in the dugout. It was like a whole lift. Everything had been just, okay, we got this. We're going to win. This is fine. And then, 5 minutes later comes Marwin with possibly one of the biggest home runs in Astros history. So when guys like that can get back there and really not make it about them and make it about their team and get everybody fired up and get us going and kind of, make us relax a little bit, I think that stems farther than any other thing you can have on a guy that just steps in there on every 5th day and gives you the best chance to win.
How much, because before that off season going into 2017, you signed Brian McCann, signed Carlos Beltran. Like, those are you guys are 3 like veterans that have been around and had experience in the playoffs, things like that, and tenured guys in the big leagues. But what did he bring that maybe was missing from, or was there anything missing, or did he just like elevate what was already in that clubhouse?
I think he just elevated. We had Dally K at the front line, Cy Young Award winner, a guy had been up for 4 or 5 years, so not quite to that veteran status. And I didn't even think of myself as a veteran at that point, because I had just hit free agency 6 years in. And then you talk about guys like McCann, who, me personally, huge fan growing up, Braves guy. I watched Brian play when I was in college. Atlanta was like a probably 2-hour drive from my junior college, so Buddy and I would always go up. Him and Jeff Francoeur, man, were my 2 guys to watch. Watch him. Guy like Carlos Beltran, obviously we know his track record. When those 3 guys came in, and with Charlie coming in as well, I looked at those 3 guys as our clubhouse leaders. All the media made it about, oh, here's Reddick. Well, yeah, great. Reddick was a veteran in an Oakland A's clubhouse with a bunch of guys who had never really gotten the shot, young guys. Great veteran in that clubhouse when you think about it, because at that point I was the 10-year veteran in the Oakland A's clubhouse. When I come over to the Astros and you go from, when you go down that lineup from Springer, Altuve, Correa, Beltran, McCann, like all these guys, not only homegrown guys who have been there for a few years now, have already learned how to play well together, not only at the big league level, but have been in the minor leagues and just grew and grew and grew through the system. You don't get that. That's special to have all those homegrown guys not only come up and be successful, but come up and be successful with your ball club. Because when I was coming up, Red Sox, we had a lot of great success in our minor league and in our big league. But when you look back at the homegrown talent they had, you had Ellsbury, Pedroia, and I think Youkilis were the only really 3, or Buchholz. And Buchholz were like the only 4 guys that were homegrown that succeeded through that team. Other than that, it was kind of dispersed in free agency. But when you look at, that 17 team, you look all around, man, that was a team full of homegrown talent with just a couple of added pieces here and there. Excuse me. But yeah, when you bring a guy like JV into that, man, you're just, your spirit's going to be boosted because you know how good this guy is. You don't have to face him anymore. You know what he's going to give you every day. So I think having that relief, and like I said before, maybe having, the guys bump back, obviously outside of Dallas. Dallas was one of the most confident players I've ever played with in my life, and I love that. But when you take guys like Lance, who was still trying to kind of figure out, Charlie, who was still kind of on the fence about retiring at that point or being good, he ended up being really great. So I think we all fed off of him, not only just the pitching staff, but for him to interact with all the hitters as well. Because when you looked in the dugout, I know later on in his Astros career, he would always sit by Dusty and by AJ down there on the coach's bench. But when those first 3 years, you'd see him floating in our dugout and always constantly talking about it. Because when you're a starting pitcher and you're not pitching, if you're not in the dugout, you're either in the training room getting treatment, watching the game, you're either having some food watching the game, or if you're a former Red Sox, you're having a beer and watching the game, which is what starters do, what they did back then. It was always, if I'm not anywhere close to being in this game, I'm going to crack open a couple of Bud Lights and I'm going to put it in a Gatorade cup and I'm going to go hang out in the dugout and watch the boys win while trying to help them as well. So he's constantly just a master of the game, learning while being also able to pass on the information to us in the game.
You probably more than anyone had an intimate knowledge of what he was like in the playoffs, because as we talked about both off air and you just mentioned it, what he did in 2012 and 2013 to the Oakland Athletics was some stuff that just doesn't get done anymore. As someone that was I have two questions. As you're watching him pitch in the 2017 ALCS, did you get flashbacks to as he pitched in Oakland? And then can you just take us through what it was like trying to hit him in that 2012 and 2013, those two division series where, you look at his numbers, he struck out, I believe it was 44 guys across 4 starts in those 2 years. At this playoff baseball, this isn't, you're not.
And he had a perfect game in Game 5 of 2013 through 6 innings. Which I broke up, and I remind him all the time of that because it was an 0-2 count and he walked me. So I was like, yeah. But yeah, I did have flashbacks to that because I saw how great he was, and it was so fun to be on that side of things because it made my job a whole lot easier as an outfielder. At that, but when you go back to those 2 years, man, it was like, gosh. When I think we didn't ever say it out loud, but I think we all knew deep down that if we wanted to win this series, we could not get to a Game 5, and you look back at that rotation, it's pretty damn near impossible because it was JV, Max Scherzer, Anibal Sanchez, who was their 4th starter? And Doug Fister.
Yeah.
When Doug Fister's your number 4, that's pretty damn impressive. So for us to be able to, because we didn't beat Scherzer, we beat their bullpen in Game 2. We beat, I think, Sanchez. Or no, we lost to Sanchez and we didn't beat Fister. We ended up getting Valverde on a walk-off in 2012. But yeah, once we knew we got to Game 5, we were kind of like, boys, we can't let them score 1. We got to let them score 1 just to win this game. And we knew how hard that was against that staff. And when you get a guy like that, and JV's up there still pumping the 98s and 99s in the 8th inning, it makes it pretty hard to line up against a guy like that, especially in a place like Oakland. Oakland being a very good place to pitch at night. But the one thing I will say about it is cool is that Game 5 in 2013 is the loudest ballpark I've ever been in, and I've been lucky enough to win a World Series, been in some playoff games at Daikin Park, and being in those playoff atmospheres. And JV will tell you the same thing. That Game 5 in 2013, loudest you ever been in the ballpark.
Craig Biggio always tells a story about because he and Jeff Bagwell were in Kerry Wood's 20 strikeout game, and Biggio always tells a story about he walked back to the dugout after his first at bat and said, "Guys, we ain't getting anything today." Was there anything like that with any of Verlander, these 4 starts with Verlander? Did you guys know first or second inning this we're up against it?
No, I don't think I've ever had that feeling in a playoff atmosphere because simply you're in the playoffs and you're not walking back with that. So I think regular season might be a little easier to comprehend that. No, I think the only time I've really felt that way, I wasn't in the lineup. It was actually when I was a Dodger. We were playing the Giants, and Matt Moore had it was a no-hitter, a perfect game. It's 8 2/3, and I'm like, well, never been a part of one. This is going to be it. And then he ends up giving a 1-2 dumper knock to Corey Seager to break it up. But that guy was I think he struck out 14 or 15 that day. And, our guys just could not touch him. And I'm just in the dugout going, yep, I'm staying right here all night, and I'm completely fine with that. This guy looks like zero fun.
So now that we know that Verlander is not in the Astros rotation. Walk us through, the Astros have a pretty solid top of the rotation. And then, we talked about it a couple episodes ago, but, they've got really like 6 or 7 guys that could conceivably, take over that 3, 4, 5 spot. Walk us through, like, what are your thoughts on the Astros rotation without Verlander now?
Well, it's just something that they're going to have to learn to adapt and pass that torch on to the next guy. You've got some really good talent. You got Fromber, who's going to be Fromber here and there. He's going to be a guy that, seems to just struggle with the consistency of being great. He can go out through 8 innings of 2-hit shutout baseball, and then the next one it could be 3 2/3 or 4 innings of 8-run ball. So I think it's just about getting him to be more consistent at his success and maybe not trying too hard. I think the turnaround for Hunter Brown last year was leaps and bounds and steps that he needed to make. And I don't think anybody thought he would make that big of a jump so quickly. He continues to do that this year completely fine. He's just fine. Then you get, a guy like Javier. Javier's back mid-season, correct? From the surgery.
They say
so.
Yeah, I mean he had Tommy John last June, so it'd be cutting it close. But
yeah, so maybe get the guy like that back at the end of the year to run for you get your playoff hopes in there. But yeah, I think there's plenty of opportunities for guys to step. Are you going to be the next Justin Verlander? Probably not. Just accept that. Just be have Hunter Brown be Hunter Brown. We get all these comps of him being the next JV from where he pitches and all this stuff. It's electric, but I think these guys just need to really work at it and maybe watch JV video and not try to recreate him, but try to just do as much as they can to get involved and just I hate to say it because I'm not trying to be a money ball guy, but maybe take 2 guys to make that Justin Verlander stat show up as opposed to having one guy pick up that slack for him. Have your 4 and 5 guy be, the middle ground of what you got out of him, and then, flip it back over to your number 1 starter in Fromber.
To me, the wild card in all this, and he's been mentioned a lot in this whole pod, and obviously, Josh, you know him a lot better than we do, but Lance McCullers, who has really just, his body has betrayed him. I don't know a better way to say it. When he's out there, he's nasty, but just hasn't been out there a ton. You know the guy, and you know how much he wants to be out there and pitching. It just hasn't worked out for him. If they can get him on the mound and get meaningful innings out of him, because we know, look, when he pitches, he's really good.
Gross. He's
like, what could he do if they can get him on the mound and healthy and get him into that maybe 3rd, 4th starter role behind those 2 guys? What could that do to elevate this rotation?
So I've said it for like 2 years now with Lance. With all these injuries, I think it might be a better option for him to get off the starting rotation job. Maybe be that middle relief guy, big, if you need a big out or 3 outs in the 5th or 6th, 4th, 5th or 6th inning, I think he's your guy you call upon because you limit his workload because of all the injuries. He's obviously not going to be your 7th, 8th inning guy with what the guys have now. He could be that guy when, the Abreu, Presley, or Hader need that day off. You slide him up there. But personally, I think for Lance and for that team, it's better for him to just limit his innings, not increase his workload. He doesn't need to pitch. He doesn't even need to pitch 120 innings a year, I don't think. I think if you make him a middle reliever, kind of like, what Seth Martinez's role was this past season and the year before that, just give him the time when you need the big outs and just make him that guy. I think it's going to help him in the long run. It's going to make him a lot better for recovery. It's going to just overall, I think it's just a better option for the whole situation when you look at it, because it's always an arm issue with him. He likes the curveball. He's a big spin rate guy. So I just think when you take those things down, I think that's going to be his best option.
Yeah, and I'll say this: Dana Brown was asked about that at the winter meetings this year, when we were in his suite, and he didn't close the door on that. He said that's something that they're thinking about. And look, Josh, I know Lance wants to start. I know Lance thinks of himself as a starting pitcher, and you don't go by this at all. But he is also paid like a starting pitcher, just with the contract he signed and things like that. So you do kind of wonder: is there first name that popped into my head was Brad Peacock, a guy that
right.
Very versatile, started games for you when you needed it, but could come in middle relief, be that swing man. I think, though, with the way this rotation is going to line up to start the year, I think they may need Lance to get into the rotation just because of, like you said, they don't know what Javier's future is. They don't know Luis Garcia. They think he'll be back in time, but you don't know. So the depth's maybe going to force Lance to be in the rotation. But I do wonder too, we've talked about they're looking at trying to move Ryan Presley for, some salary relief and trying to, move some money around. So maybe if they do move Presley, maybe that's a logical way to kind of, you slide Abreu up to the 8th inning role, Hader's your closer, and then who knows, maybe you can find a spot for Lance in the bullpen. But I think you and I both know that if Lance was given his druthers, he'd probably want to be a starting pitcher, right?
He definitely would. He definitely would be a starter. But I think a guy with as big as a dog as Lance is, and he wants to win, he's going to do whatever it takes for that team to win. And if that is the case, I actually didn't know they were trying to move Presley. So that's good. I hate to say that's good because that comes off wrong. They do move a guy like that. I completely agree. He becomes your kind of floater like Peacock was. Gives you a spot start, gives you 2 innings, maybe 3 innings here and there. 3 days, 4 days later, he's back in your 6th and 7th inning role. I completely agree with that. And I think at the end of the day, if they do figure out their rotation, that Lance would be completely fine with that. He might not like it on the inside, but he's going to go out there. And if he's in that 7th inning, he's going to give you 15 pitches at max effort. And he's going to, and ultimately, I think it makes him grosser. I think it makes Lance a lot more nasty with his pitches. He can more max effort, the runner, the 94 runner that he throws. And obviously we know what he can bring with his knuckle curveball, a little bit more max effort with that one as well. But like I said, I think it just all comes down to him getting more recovery time and just, not increasing that workload, like I said, because, they have him for what, 2 more years after this year?
2 more years, yeah.
3 years, including this year. Yeah. So, this isn't just a this year thing. This is something where if we're not looking to just have Lance right off into the stud set because of his injuries, we can at least satisfy ourselves with the money we paid him, because these next 3 years, if he is your middle relief or back end guy, you know what? We love that because Lance has been such an integral part of this Houston Astros team for the last 9 years. You're completely satisfied with what Lance has brought to your table for this ball club. And I think that he can ride off into the sunset like that because at the end of the day, it's all about him being healthy for a full season. We all know he wants to be a starter, but we've seen too many people transition into that role because of injuries, because of, the people throwing 100 now. I think it's just he's going to be happy because he wants to be out there. I think at the end he just wants to be out there competing, whether it is a starter job or a relief job.
Yeah, and I think sometimes if somebody hears a comp of Brad Peacock, they might not be too excited. I'll have you know, unironically, Brad Peacock is one of my favorite players ever. In 2017, I called him the staff ace the entire year because it seemed like every time he was going to go out and give you 5 2/3 of 2-run ball, and there's something about that consistency, and then the ability to what was a game 3 of the World
He got
Series?
a 3 2/3 sitting save, right?
I was way up in the upper deck up there watching that, but that was a McCullers Peacock tandem, right? And
There was two pitchers for that whole game. Yep.
And truly, Peacock has a very similar repertoire where he just threw that sinker and slider. And I think if you can limit Lance to just say like, hey, you're going to go out and face 4 guys, like throw that curveball 80% of the time. You don't have to worry about trying to get through, 6 innings. I think that's a really, really valuable piece, especially when you get into the postseason, right? Because starters outside of Justin Verlander aren't going too long anyway. And so the guy that you can count on for 2 innings, every game, every other game in a playoff is almost as valuable, if not more valuable than your.
It's an underrated piece on the board, and especially in the playoffs. When you think about that middle relief guy who comes in and gets those big 5 outs, nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about him post game. Nobody talks about him in the media. But when you're in that clubhouse, you know how big it is. The media knows how big those guys are because they're not going to win you any awards. They're not going to do anything spectacular for you. They're not even going to get a name ticker on the bottom of the Sports Center line. So to be able to have those guys just fly under that radar and to be able to get their job done in some of the biggest moments in the game, I completely agree with you. And let's not forget Lance's changeup is no thing to mess with either.
Yeah.
He's so good against both righties and lefties. And I think that really helps their case too, because you don't have to wait for that one opportunity in the game. You don't have to plug them in the 4th inning or say the 5th inning. You can line them up against anybody in the lineup, whether they're lefty, righty, and he can go out there and get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like we said, I mean, that's a really valuable piece to have. And I know you're up in Colorado, but you know where Mount Yale is? It's like an hour and a half or so from
I do not.
Breckenridge.
So I'm not familiar with the area. I know the drive from Denver to Breck. I know how to get to Copper Mountain.
Yep.
And
that's a great one.
And I know how to get to Silverthorne pretty much. But I let my wife do most of the driving there, because this South Georgia boy did not grow up driving in snow or ice. And especially with the kids in the car, I think it's a lot safer for her to do that, because she's at least spent years driving in it.
Well, you'll have to let Brad know this, but a couple years ago I climbed Mount Yale. It's a 14er, and I took his baseball card in my pocket, and I have a picture of his card at the top of Mount Yale, because I truly man, he was so good on those teams. I loved watching him pitch.
That's awesome.
To bring it full circle, I was looking at to prepare for this, I was looking at some of Justin Verlander's postseason pitch game logs. He had a stretch of 6 postseason starts from 2011 to 2012 where these were the pitch counts: 120, 82, 133, 121, 122, and 132.
Mm-hmm.
In 2019, I don't think anyone remembers who started Game 6 of the ALCS for the Astros.
Hold on. Wait, what year? Sorry, 2019.
2019, the Jose Altuve, the walk-off. Altuve's walk-off to win the pennant.
Who started it for us?
Who started it for the Houston Astros?
It was Verlander versus Curtin. No. That was Game 5. That was Game 5 of the World Series.
Playing the Yankees. The Yankees.
God. Was it Paxton?
I think it was Paxton for the Yankees.
It was I know, because I didn't start. So it had to be James Paxton versus, I mean, we're talking about him. Was it JV?
It was staff ace Brad Peacock.
Yeah,
Brad Peacock. Nice.
It was staff ace Brad Peacock. And that just shows how the complete, pitching has changed. The concept of a starter has changed. The concept of how to get 27 outs in the playoffs has changed. There are very few Justin Verlanders left that anyone's going to be allowed to throw 130 pitches in a playoff game. But
nobody can throw 130 pitches in a game anymore.
No. Maybe Justin will convince Bomel in San Francisco if he's got it going. Maybe.
No, I tell you, the first person that'll do it will be Tariq Skubal, however you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's still young. They're getting good. AJ ain't gonna hold him back if if they got no better option. He's gonna be your best chance, no matter what. So if I'm looking at the 9th inning, my man's at 110 pitches in a 3-run ball game. Go back out there, bud. You got it. We got Toradol in the training room. You'll be fine.
One young Tigers pitcher may be emulating another. So this has been fun. I appreciate it. Josh, we will have you back on next week for another episode of Crush City Territory. We appreciate the outpouring of support we've gotten, and we please rate and review us on Apple. Hit subscribe on YouTube. It really helps us out. We just went over 1,000 subscribers, which is a big deal for us. So hit it. Keep that number going up. Rate and review us on Apple, and we will see you guys soon.
Bye.